cold wind howled through the broken windows of the tiny wooden shack on the outskirts of Detroit. Inside, Jacob Carter sat on the floor, clutching his stomach as hunger gnawed at him like an insatiable beast. He had eaten nothing but a stale piece of bread the day before, and tonight, there was nothing. At just 19, Jacob had already seen the worst of life. His mother had died when he was only 10, and his father, a factory worker, had turned to alcohol to escape his sorrows. When his father passed away due to liver failure, Jacob was left all alone in the world. With no money, no relatives willing to help, and nowhere to go, he ended up homeless. Each day was a battle for survival. He spent his mornings looking for odd jobs, washing cars, carrying heavy bags for travelers at the bus station, and sometimes even begging. But no matter how hard he tried, there was never enough to keep hunger at bay. "Hey kid, get out of here!" A restaurant owner yelled one evening as Jacob stood outside, hoping for a leftover meal from a diner's plate. He had become invisible to society, nothing more than a street rat scavenging for scraps. One night, he sat under a street lamp, watching people in expensive suits walk past him, laughing and carrying bags filled with things he could never afford. How did they do it? He wondered. Why are they different from me? Despite his misery, Jacob was not ready to accept this life as his fate. Somewhere deep inside, a fire burned. A small, almost extinguished hope that maybe, just maybe, he could change his destiny. Would the world ever know his name? Jacob shivered in the cold as he lay on a piece of cardboard outside an abandoned building. The hunger was unbearable, but he had grown used to it. He knew he couldn't go on like this forever. Something had to change. One night, as he sat near a gas station trying to warm his hands over a vent, he overheard a conversation between two men in business suits. "I told you, man, the stock market is unpredictable. But if you know where to put your money, you can turn a few dollars into thousands." Jacob's ears perked up. He didn't understand much about stocks, but the idea of turning a little money into a fortune fascinated him. The next day, he walked into the public library, a place he often visited to escape the cold. But this time, instead of just reading random books, he searched for everything he could find on investments, money, and business. The words on the pages opened up a new world to him. He learned about compound interest, the power of saving, and how businesses grow. But one particular quote changed his entire mindset. "The only difference between where you are and where you want to be is the knowledge you acquire and the actions you take." Jacob realized he had been waiting for luck to change his life. But the truth was he had to change his own luck. The problem? He had no money, no connections, and no education beyond high school. But that didn't mean he had no options. He made a decision that night. He was going to build something. Anything. Even if it meant starting from nothing. Would his determination be enough? Jacob knew he had to take action. But where could he start with $0 in his pocket? He went back to the library every day, taking notes, watching free online videos on the library's computer, and absorbing everything about finance, business, and entrepreneurship. But knowledge alone wasn't enough. He needed money, something, anything to start. Then an idea struck him. He noticed that gas station owners and small shopkeepers often struggled with keeping track of their stock. Many still used old notebooks instead of digital inventory systems. What if I helped them organize their sales and stock for a small fee? He thought. He had no experience, but he had nothing to lose. The next morning, he approached a small grocery store owner. "Sir, I can help you track your sales better, so you know exactly how much profit you're making," Jacob said nervously. The owner, an elderly man named Mr. Patel, eyed him suspiciously. "And how do you plan to do that?" Jacob had spent hours learning Excel at the library. "I can create a simple spreadsheet for you, and you won't have to write everything down by hand." Mr. Patel hesitated but eventually agreed. "Do it for free for a week. If it works, I'll pay you." Jacob worked tirelessly that week, entering sales data, calculating profits, and showing Mr. Patel how to manage his stock better. At the end of the week, the old man was impressed. "You saved me time, kid. Here's $20. You deserve it." It wasn't much, but to Jacob it was everything. It was his first earned money in business. Could this be the beginning of something bigger? Jacob stared at the crisp $20 bill in his hands. It wasn't just money, it was proof that he had value, that he could create something out of nothing. Instead of spending it on food, he made a bold decision. He would reinvest it. With his new confidence, Jacob approached more small shop owners, pitching his simple inventory tracking service. Some turned him away. Others listened but weren't convinced. But just a few, agreed to give him a chance. Within a month, he had 5 small businesses paying him anywhere between $15 to $30 per month to maintain their inventory records. He was still living on the streets, but now at least he could buy bread without begging. One evening, while working in Mr. Patel's shop, a businessman named Robert Finch walked in. He noticed Jacob handling the store's records and asked, "Who made this system for you?" "This young man here," Mr. Patel said, patting Jacob on the back. "Smart kid." Robert turned to Jacob. "Ever thought of doing this on a bigger scale?" Jacob hesitated. I don't know how." Robert handed him a business card. "Come see me at my office tomorrow. Let's talk." That night, Jacob couldn't sleep. Was this his breakthrough moment? When he walked into Robert Finch's office the next day, he had no idea that this meeting would change his entire life. Would this be the start of something great, or just another dead end? Jacob walked into Robert Finch's office, nervous but determined. He had never been inside a real office before. The polished floors, the clicking of keyboards, and the scent of fresh coffee. It all felt surreal. Robert sat behind a sleek wooden desk and gestured for Jacob to sit. "So, kid, tell me, how did you learn to do all that?" Jacob hesitated for a moment but then told his story, the hunger, the library, the businesses he helped. He spoke with passion, and Robert listened carefully. "You're resourceful," Robert said. "That's rare. I run a small tech startup. We help businesses automate inventory management. What if I give you a chance to learn and work with us?" Jacob's eyes widened. "A real job? In tech? I don't have a degree or experience," Jacob said cautiously. Robert smiled. "I don't care about degrees. I care about people who solve problems. You've already proven you can do that." Jacob didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." For the first time in his life, he had a real chance at success. For months, he worked harder than ever, learning about software, automation, and business. He didn't mind working long nights because every day he was growing. One day, while working on a client project, he had an idea. What if small businesses had an app to track their stock without hiring extra help? Excited, he rushed to Robert. "I think I can build something even simpler for small businesses." Robert leaned forward. "If it's good, I'll invest in it." This was it. His moment to prove himself. Could Jacob build something big enough to change his life forever? Jacob spent the next few weeks obsessing over his idea. He stayed late at the office, sketching designs, testing different concepts, and teaching himself basic coding through free online courses. He knew that most small businesses couldn't afford expensive software. His solution had to be simple, affordable, and effective. After countless nights of trial and error, he built a prototype. A basic mobile app where shopkeepers could enter their daily sales, track stock, and get alerts when inventory was running low. Excited, he showed it to Robert. Robert tested it, nodding in approval. "It's rough, but the idea is solid. If we refine this, we might have something big." Jacob's heart pounded. "Do you think small businesses will actually use it?" Robert smirked. "Only one way to find out." They launched a test version in a few local stores. The results were promising. Store owners loved the convenience. Word spread, and soon more businesses wanted to try it. One evening, Robert sat Jacob down. "Listen, Jacob, you've got something special here. I want to invest, but I also want you to have a real stake in this company. I'll put in $50,000 for development, and you'll own 40% of the business. What do you say?" Jacob could hardly believe it. Just months ago, he was starving on the streets. Now, someone was offering to invest in his idea. With tears in his eyes, he shook Robert's hand. This was no longer just an idea. It was the beginning of a business. But was he ready for the challenges ahead? With Robert Finch's investment secured, Jacob officially co-founded his first company, Quickstock Solutions. It was a simple, affordable inventory management app designed specifically for small businesses. For the first time in his life, Jacob had an office desk, a computer, and a team. He wasn't just a street kid anymore, he was a business owner. But running a startup was harder than he expected. The first challenge? Getting customers. He and Robert hit the streets, talking to small business owners, convincing them to try the app. Some agreed out of curiosity. Others refused, skeptical of using technology. Jacob quickly learned an important lesson. People don't just buy a product, they buy trust. So he changed his approach. Instead of just selling the app, he offered free workshops to help store owners understand technology. Slowly, trust built up and sign-ups started increasing. Then came the second challenge, scaling the business. As the app gained users, it needed more features, security, and better performance. That meant hiring developers, managing funds wisely, and constantly improving the product. Every day was a battle. Some nights, Jacob worked until dawn, fixing bugs and answering customer emails. Despite the struggles, growth was happening. After 6 months, Quickstock Solutions had 500 active users. After a year, it had 10,000. Investors started noticing. One day, Robert walked into the office with a life-changing opportunity. A venture capital firm wants to invest $1 million in Quickstock, Robert announced. Jacob felt his breath catch. $1 million? He had come from starving in the streets to building $1 million company. But could he handle what came next? Would this be his breakthrough, or the beginning of new struggles? Jacob sat in the boardroom, staring at the investment agreement. $1 million. It was a number he couldn't even comprehend just a year ago when he was begging for food. "Are we ready for this?" he asked Robert. Robert grinned. "You built this from the ground up, Jacob. If anyone's ready, it's you." With a deep breath, Jacob signed the deal. Quickstock Solutions had officially secured its first major funding. The growth explosion with the new investment, everything changed. They hired developers, improved the app, and expanded their marketing. Within 6 months, they grew from 10,000 users to 100,000 businesses using Quickstock. Jacob's story became an inspiration. Homeless to CEO. It was a headline that caught the attention of business magazines and podcasts. One day, as he was working late, his assistant knocked on his door. "You might want to see this." She handed him a magazine. It was Forbes, and on the cover, his face. From homeless to tech disruptor. How Jacob Carter built a multi-million-dollar business. His hands trembled as he read the article. Just 2 years ago, he was sleeping on a cardboard box. Now, the world was talking about him. But with success came new challenges. Investors expected bigger results. Competitors started copying his idea. And the pressure? It was unimaginable. Would Jacob survive the world of billionaires and boardrooms? Or would the success he fought so hard for slip through his fingers? The journey wasn't over, it was just beginning. Jacob sat in his sleek, modern office, staring at the towering skyline of New York City. He had come a long way from the cold, empty nights on the streets. He was now a millionaire. But with great success came even greater pressure. Investors weren't just happy with growth, they wanted profitability. "Jacob, we need to scale faster," Robert told him during a board meeting. "Competitors are catching up. We need to introduce more features, raise prices, and expand internationally." Jacob nodded, but deep inside he felt overwhelmed. Part 9. The weight of success. Word count. 350. Jacob sat in his sleek, modern office, staring at the towering skyline of New York City. He had come a long way from the cold, empty nights on the streets. He was now a millionaire. But with great success came even greater pressure. Investors weren't just happy with growth, they wanted profitability. "Jacob, we need to scale faster," Robert told him during a board meeting. "Competitors are catching up. We need to introduce more features, raise prices, and expand internationally." Jacob nodded, but deep inside he felt overwhelmed. The challenges of a growing empire with success came enemies. Big tech companies started noticing Quickstock. Some tried to buy them out, others launched their own versions of his app. One day, his lawyer walked in with bad news. Jacob, a major competitor just copied your software and launched it under a different name. They're offering it for free to kill your market. Jacob clenched his fists. All his hard work at risk. But he wasn't about to lose everything he built. Instead of panicking, he went back to the strategy that got him here in the first place, thinking differently. While competitors were cutting prices, Jacob focused on customer loyalty. He added personalized AI recommendations, free business consultations, and exclusive features only available to long-term users. It worked. Instead of losing users, Quickstock's retention rate soared. Within another year, Quickstock crossed 1 million active users. And then, the biggest moment of his life came, an offer from Silicon Valley's biggest venture firm. They were willing to invest $100 million. It was a deal that could take Quickstock to $1 billion valuation. But signing it meant losing control of his company. Would Jacob take the deal or stay true to his vision? The biggest decision of his life was coming. Jacob sat alone in his office, staring at the investment proposal. $100 million. The kind of money that could make Quickstock a global powerhouse. But there was a catch. The investors wanted control. They wanted to bring in their own leadership team, change the product strategy, and focus on rapid monetization. Robert leaned forward. Jacob, this is a once-in-a-lifetime deal. You could be running $1 billion company in a year. Jacob exhaled. $1 billion company, but at what cost? Jacob thought back to where he started. On the streets, hungry, with nothing but a dream. Back then, money was his biggest problem. Now, it wasn't about money. It was about purpose. If he sold control of Quickstock, the company might become just another corporate machine. But if he turned down the deal, he risked falling behind in the competitive tech world. Finally, he looked at Robert and said, I'm not giving up control. I built this company with my own hands, and I'm not handing it over to someone who only cares about numbers. Robert smiled. I hoped you'd say that. Instead of taking the $100 million, Jacob made a risky move. He raised capital in a different way. He reached out to his own users. He launched a crowdfunding campaign, allowing Quickstock's most loyal customers to invest small amounts in exchange for equity. The response was overwhelming. Within weeks, Quickstock had raised $50 million from its own users. And more importantly, Jacob still owned the company. Quickstock expanded globally, becoming a must-have tool for businesses in over 50 countries. And soon, the unthinkable happened. A new Forbes cover story hit the stands. Jacob Carter, the homeless kid who built $1 billion empire. But the journey wasn't over. With success at its peak, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Would Jacob be ready for what came next? The fight for legacy was just beginning. Jacob stood in front of a massive crowd at Tech World Summit, the world's biggest startup conference. The applause was deafening. Everyone wanted to hear from the man who went from being homeless to running $1 billion company. He took a deep breath and began. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was just a street kid, hungry, desperate, forgotten by the world. But I refused to let my circumstances define me. And today, I stand before you. Not as a CEO, not as a millionaire, but as proof that anyone can change their life. The crowd erupted in cheers. But behind the success, a storm was brewing. A week after the summit, Jacob received a shocking email. A tech giant was suing Quickstock. The lawsuit claimed that Quickstock had unintentionally used a patented feature in its latest update. If Jacob lost the case, it could mean losing millions or worse, losing the company itself. Robert slammed his fist on the desk. This isn't about patents. They see us as a threat, and they're trying to destroy us. Jacob knew they were right. The big corporations hated disruptors like him. Instead of backing down, Jacob fought back. He hired the best legal team, gathered proof, and went public with the story. The media exploded with headlines. Big tech tries to crush young entrepreneur. The public rallied behind him. Quickstock's users flooded social media with support, and pressure mounted on the corporation. After a brutal legal battle, the lawsuit was dropped. Jacob had won. But the war wasn't over yet. The tech world was ruthless, and bigger challenges were coming. Would Jacob be able to protect everything he built? Or was the greatest challenge still ahead? The fight for his legacy had only begun. Jacob sat in his office, the dim city lights casting long shadows on the walls. The victory against the tech giant had been a turning point, but it had also made him a target. With Quickstock's success, new enemies were emerging. Competitors who wanted to steal his ideas, investors who wanted to push him out, and even traitors within his own company. One evening, Robert walked into his office, his face tense. "We have a problem." Jacob looked up. "What now?" Robert slid a folder across the table. "Someone inside Quickstock is leaking our data to competitors." Jacob's stomach dropped. They launched an internal investigation. Weeks of digging uncovered the truth. A senior executive had been selling company secrets to a rival startup. Jacob felt sick. This was someone he had trusted, someone he had believed in. When he confronted the executive, the man smirked. "You really think you can go up against the biggest names in tech and survive? You don't belong in this world, Jacob." Jacob clenched his fists. He had come too far to let anyone take this away from him. The man was fired, legal action was taken, and security was tightened. But Jacob knew this wasn't over. Instead of playing defense, Jacob decided to go on the offense. He announced a new expansion plan, taking Quickstock into emerging markets, targeting millions of small businesses in Asia, Africa, and South America. If they wanted to bring him down, he was going to rise even higher. But then came the biggest shock of all, an offer he never expected. A mysterious investor wanted to buy Quickstock for $2 billion. If he sold, he could walk away filthy rich. But if he stayed, he'd be risking everything. What would Jacob do? Sell out or double down? Jacob sat in his office, staring at the offer. $2 billion. It was more money than he had ever dreamed of. Robert paced the room. "This is insane, Jacob. If you take this deal, you'll never have to work another day in your life." Jacob nodded, but inside, his mind was spinning. He could walk away a legend, the homeless kid who built a billion-dollar company and cashed out at the top. But then he thought about the small business owners, the people who trusted Quickstock, the ones who saw him as one of them. If he sold, the new owners could change everything. Increase prices, limit features, even shut the company down to remove competition. Quickstock wasn't just a business to him. It was his life's work. He wasn't ready to give it up. The next day, Jacob walked into the investor's boardroom, shook hands and said, "I'm not selling. Quickstock isn't for sale." The investor smirked. "That's a mistake, kid." Jacob just smiled. "Maybe, but I didn't build this to sell it to people who don't care." The news of Jacob rejecting a $2 billion buyout made headlines. Homeless entrepreneur turns down billion-dollar offer. What's next? People were inspired. Quickstock's user base exploded. Small business owners saw Jacob as one of them, a fighter, not just another businessman chasing money. But not everyone was happy. The rejected investors weren't done with him yet. A new wave of corporate attacks was coming. Jacob had won battles before, but was he ready for the war? Jacob had turned down $2 billion, but the fight was far from over. The rejected investors weren't just walking away, they were coming for him. Within weeks, Quickstock faced a coordinated attack. False media reports surfaced, claiming Quickstock's technology was outdated and unreliable. Former employees were bribed to leak internal issues. A major competitor suddenly launched a nearly identical product, at half the price. It was clear the tech giants wanted him out. Robert stormed into Jacob's office. "This is getting ugly, Jacob. Our investors are panicking. If we don't act fast, Quickstock could collapse." Jacob felt the weight on his shoulders. He had fought too hard to lose everything now. He gathered his top executives and laid out a strategy. Go directly to the users. He recorded a personal video, sharing his journey and calling for support. Drop the biggest update yet. Quickstock rolled out AI-powered automation that no competitor could match. Cut the noise. Instead of responding to the fake reports, he let results speak for themselves. The response was overwhelming. Quickstock's video went viral, with millions of users showing support. The new AI update led to a record-breaking surge in signups. The competitor's cheap copy? It flopped. Jacob had done it. He had survived the attack. But he wasn't stopping there. Now he had a new goal. Not just to survive, but to make Quickstock the most powerful small business platform in the world. And nothing would stand in his way. Jacob had faced corporate attacks, betrayals, and billion-dollar temptations, and he had survived them all. But he wasn't interested in just surviving. He wanted Quickstock to be unstoppable. The recent attacks had made one thing clear. Competition in the US was ruthless. So Jacob decided to do something bold. Instead of just defending his territory, he went global. While his competitors were focused on the US and Europe, Jacob saw an untapped market: small businesses in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. These were regions where millions of mom-and-pop stores operated without digital tools, and Quickstock could change that. Jacob launched an aggressive international expansion plan. Localized versions. Quickstock was translated into 20 languages and adapted for different currencies and tax systems. Affordable pricing. He introduced low-cost subscription plans that made it accessible to even the smallest businesses. On-the-ground teams. Instead of relying on digital ads, Jacob hired local teams to personally onboard businesses. Within a year, Quickstock's user base exploded. Over 5 million businesses worldwide started using Quickstock. The company entered 50 new countries. Revenue tripled as businesses relied on Quickstock to manage inventory, track sales, and grow. And then came the biggest moment of his career. A letter arrived on his desk from Time magazine. Jacob Carter named Time's Entrepreneur of the Year. Jacob sat back, staring at the words. From homelessness to a billion-dollar empire. But even with this massive success, he knew one thing: he was just getting started. Because next, he wasn't just going to change businesses. He was going to change the world. Jacob stood in front of a packed auditorium. The Tech Disruptors Summit had invited him as the keynote speaker, the same event that once rejected him when he was an unknown entrepreneur. Now, he was the main event. The audience hung on to his every word as he spoke about Quickstock's global impact, how it had given millions of small businesses a fair chance in the digital economy. But Jacob wasn't just here to celebrate his success. He was here to announce something bigger. As the crowd fell silent, Jacob made his boldest announcement yet. I'm launching a new initiative, Quickstock Zero, a completely free version of our platform for small businesses in developing nations. No fees, no hidden costs, just a tool to help them grow. The audience gasped. Free? Investors panicked. Jacob, this is suicide. Giving it away for free. But Jacob had already run the numbers. The more businesses used Quickstock, the more valuable it became. If millions of businesses depended on it, new monetization opportunities would emerge, without taking advantage of struggling entrepreneurs. Critics attacked him. The media called it a reckless gamble. But then, something incredible happened. Governments and NGOs partnered with Quickstock to help distribute the free version. Tech giants who once tried to destroy him now wanted to collaborate. Quickstock's user base skyrocketed past 10 million businesses worldwide. Months later, Forbes published a new cover story, Jacob Carter, the man who refused to sell out, and ended up changing the world. Jacob had done what no one thought possible. But as he stood at the peak of success, a new challenge emerged, one he never saw coming. Because now, his legacy was on the line. Jacob Carter had built a global empire. Quickstock was now used by over 10 million businesses, and the free version, Quickstock Zero, had revolutionized small business management. He had become more than just a tech entrepreneur, he was a symbol of hope. But with massive influence came massive enemies. One day, Robert walked into Jacob's office, his face pale. "We have a problem." He handed Jacob a document. It was a hostile takeover bid. A coalition of major tech corporations had quietly bought stakes in Quickstock. Now they were trying to seize control. If Jacob didn't act fast, Quickstock could be ripped from his hands. His vision, the platform he had built for small businesses, could be turned into just another corporate cash grab. Jacob clenched his fists. He had fought too hard for this. Instead of panicking, he went back to his roots. He rallied his users. Jacob launched a global campaign. #WeStandWithQuickstock. Millions of small business owners, customers, and supporters took to social media, demanding that Jacob remain in control. Investors who were considering selling their shares were pressured by public opinion. Then Jacob made his final move. Using his personal wealth and the support of friendly investors, he bought back enough shares to block the takeover. Jacob had won again, but the battle had drained him. The fight, the pressure, the sleepless nights, it was all taking a toll. For the first time, he asked himself, is this what I want for the rest of my life? Because now he wasn't just fighting for success. He was fighting for his sanity. And soon, he would have to make the hardest decision of his life. Would he stay in the fight, or walk away from everything he built? The endgame was near. Jacob Carter had won the battle to keep Quickstock under his control, but he had never felt more exhausted. For years, he had fought, built, and defended his company against corporate giants, betrayals, and impossible odds. But at what cost? His health was suffering. His relationships were distant. His mind never rested. One night, Robert found him in the office, slumped over his desk. Jacob, you haven't gone home in 2 days. Jacob rubbed his eyes. There's too much to do. Robert sighed. You've already won, man. Quickstock is a global success. But what about you? Jacob didn't answer. For the first time, he didn't know. A week later, Jacob received an email from an unexpected name. Elon Musk. Intrigued, he agreed to meet. Elon greeted him with a grin. I followed your journey, Jacob. Hell of a ride. Jacob chuckled. It's been a lot. Elon leaned back. I get it. You've built something incredible. But let me ask you this. What's next? Jacob hesitated. I don't know. I've spent so long fighting. I never thought about life beyond Quickstock. Elon nodded. That's the mistake most founders make. They build, fight, win, but never plan their own escape. Jacob left that meeting deep in thought. He had dedicated his entire life to proving himself, surviving and building. But now, for the first time, he realized something. He didn't need to prove anything anymore. He had won. Now it was time to decide. Would he stay and keep fighting, or finally step away and live? The answer would change everything. Jacob Carter sat alone in his penthouse, looking out at the New York skyline. He had everything he once dreamed of. A billion-dollar company, global recognition, millions of people inspired by his journey, but deep down, he felt empty. For years, he had fought to survive, to win, to build. But was he happy? The next morning, Robert found Jacob in the office, staring at the massive Quickstock logo on the wall. You okay? Robert asked. Jacob sighed. I've been thinking. Maybe it's time for me to step away. Robert's eyes widened. You're serious? Jacob nodded. I built Quickstock to help small businesses. Just doing that better than I ever imagined. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life fighting boardroom wars. I want to live. Robert was silent for a moment. Then he smiled. I had a feeling this day would come. The big announcement. A week later, Jacob stood on stage for what would be his final speech as CEO of Quickstock. The world watched as he made his announcement. After years of building this company from nothing, I've made the hardest decision of my life. It's time for me to step down as CEO of Quickstock. Gasps filled the auditorium. Jacob continued. This company was never about me. It was about empowering small businesses. And it will continue to do that. But now, it's time for me to explore what else life has to offer. Despite stepping down, Jacob remained a major shareholder and ensured that Quickstock's mission remained unchanged. He had won the ultimate battle, not just in business but in life. He had gone from a starving kid on the streets to building an empire. And now, he was finally free. But what would he do next? Jacob Carter had spent years fighting his way from nothing to everything. He had built a billion-dollar company, inspired millions, and defied every odd against him. Now, for the first time in his life, he was free. But the question remained, what's next? After stepping down as CEO, Jacob took a year-long break, something he had never done before. He traveled the world, visiting the small businesses that Quickstock had helped. He mentored young entrepreneurs, teaching them what he had learned. He spent time with himself, reflecting on what truly mattered. And then, a new idea sparked in his mind. Jacob realized that his story, his journey from homelessness to success, was bigger than just business. He wanted to help others who were struggling like he once did. So he launched the Carter Foundation, a global initiative to support underprivileged entrepreneurs. He created a free business school for struggling young minds. He started a fund to invest in startups built by people from disadvantaged backgrounds. He partnered with governments and NGOs to create opportunities for those who had none. This was his true calling. One day, a journalist asked him, "Jacob, you could have retired and disappeared. Why keep working?" Jacob smiled. "Because there's always another Jacob Carter out there. Some kids sleeping on the streets, believing they have no future. I want them to know that they do." And with that, he had done more than just build a company. He had built a legacy. From starving on the streets to being on the cover of Forbes. From nothing to changing the world.